Hi, everybody. I'm sad that this is our last night together. We've had such great discussions throughout the conference. How was your experience? Yay! So we're very excited about that TV show on the job. It's going to be a Women in Technology WITI TV show. And if anyone's interested in learning more, just send us an email. And we're really excited about the interview and presence of Patricia Arquette. We're so happy to have you back, Patricia. We really are. You're like part of our family already. So Will Marre, who will be interviewing Patricia, is co-founder of Covey Leadership and has been dedicated to working with women and helping women develop excellent leadership skills. And we're forming a partnership with Will so we can expand our leadership training and give everyone who's part of WITI the skills they need to go right to the top. So, this has been a very exciting 3 days, and many of you, excuse me, have come up to me and told me about the life-changing experience that you've had at this event. I want to encourage you to continue getting involved with us, reach out to us. We are so dedicated to your succeeding, and whatever we can do to support that happening, we're there for you. So again, thank you for being here, and let's give a warm welcome to Will Marre and Patricia Arquette. Thank you.
I have to tell you, I'm thrilled to be here, and
likewise.
And I'm thrilled to be really talking to you because of what I've learned about you in the last 2 weeks. And I wanted to start off with give love. One of the things that I really admire is somebody who's a practical activist. And I'd just like you to give us an update on what Give Love is up to, what's happened since you were here last year, and tell us about that.
So I'm part of this NGO called givelove.org. We do ecological sanitation in the developing world. Part of the reason, I'm also an activist in equal pay and equal rights for women. And oddly, these two things are connected because the lack of clean water and waterborne disease, the lack of sanitation and waterborne disease kills more kids in AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis worldwide. So the effect on poverty the lack of sanitation has and community health is so drastic in the developing world. It's such a basic right that so many people don't live with. More people have cell phones than toilets. So we work in the developing world. We have projects now in Haiti. We started a pilot with partners in Uganda. We have an amazing pilot that's been just going crazy in Nicaragua. And we have a project in India also. So I'm very happy with that work. And I think as we look at global warming and how it's going to impact particularly the poorest people, waterless toilet systems are really critical. We're seeing it already. We're going to places where people have flush toilets that they haven't been able to use because they haven't had rain in 2 years. And they're having to wait for water for long periods of time. So I'm very committed to that work that we're doing in that area.
Well, great. I was talking to Patricia before, and I said, it's one thing to have empathy, which is really caring about something, and another thing to have practical empathy, which is to do something about it that's practical, and there couldn't be anything more practical than creating an opportunity for clean water and a healthy life. So there's a lot to be admired there. I want to shift now to your equal rights passion and equal pay. And you're such really a passionate spokesperson for that. What really triggered that in you?
Well, I think there were times in my life where we lived below the poverty level. There was a time in my mom's life when she was very ill with breast cancer, and this was before Obamacare. And at that time, if you lost your health insurance, you couldn't get insurance. So she'd been ill for several years, and my father had a girlfriend, and he wanted to get married. She wanted to get married. But my mom said, we can't get a divorce because I won't have insurance. Because even though they'd been married over 30 years, that was a predicament a lot of women were in. You were like a non-person suddenly if you were no longer in the relationship. So I saw examples like that. I was a single mom at 20 and struggling to figure out how to buy food and diapers at the same time. So I understood when I looked around how drastic it is. You know, for the poorest women, we have 10,000 women turned away from domestic abuse shelters a day. That's 3.65 million women a year. The number one reason they say they return to their abuser is economic insecurity. So it's really killing women, literally, that they don't have their own ability to be able to make a full living as an equal human being in the United States of America. Besides, it impacts women at every level of education that costs the average woman $500,000 over a lifetime. If you have higher degrees, it goes to $2 million over a lifetime. We have the highest number of elderly women living in poverty in any industrialized nation. We have 1 in 5 hungry kids in America. And we have 66 million women and kids living in poverty, and half of them would not be. That's 33 million of our citizens would not be living in poverty if their mom was just paid their full dollar. So to me, this isn't, those are numbers, but those are people, and those are our citizens, and those are people we love and care about, and they're working their butts off, and they don't have a voice in the world. So I was given this success, and I want to amplify other people's story and other people's voices, and I want to live in a country I think we can live in and we should be living in.
I know that this year you went to Congress and talked to a number of lawmakers, and you bring out these sort of, well, they're not sort of, they're just outrageous statistics why in 2016, in the richest country in the history of the world, you have so many disadvantaged people who are trying so hard to stand on their own 2 feet and have all these obstacles. What did you find when you talked to the lawmakers? What's in the way of just getting this cleared up?
Well, one thing is the Paycheck Fairness Act has come before Congress over and over again, and it hasn't been passed. After my speech at the Oscars, some great legislation passed in California, thanks to Senator Hannah Beth Jackson and Governor Brown. It's the strongest fair pay bill in the nation, and what that does is it makes employers have to show why they're paying a male more than a female. You have to say, oh, well, they have a higher college degree, they have more sales. You have to have some quantifiable reason why you're paying them more. Before that, women had to prove discrimination. Even if they paid every single female less at every single job area, they had to prove the intent for discrimination. We need the Paycheck Fairness Act because it has even more laws, and women across the country need these kind of strong laws. For instance, right now, government contractors have to report paying what they pay managers, but they don't have to break it down by sex or race or age. The EEOC just asked for them to start breaking it down by that. And this is the way that we'll start to get discrimination across the board weeded out. But we need more comprehensive laws. What I've learned in the room, for instance, when I'm talking about women, a friend of mine produced a movie. It's coming out September 7th. Get your girlfriends together, get your daughters, go see this movie, get everyone you know to go see this movie. It's called Equal Means Equal, and it really examines a lot of different areas where women are being impacted by the lack of equal rights. For instance, when I go to DC and meet with lawmakers, one of the things I talk about is we've had 400,000 untested rape kits in the United States. We have states today that still don't know where the rape kits are, how many they have. So that has the DNA of the rapist in it, right? But this very violent crime is not being considered at all. We have states where rape victims have to write a letter every 6 months and ask, please don't destroy my rape kit. please hold on to my rape kit till you're ready to examine it, to send it to the lab. Please don't throw away my rape kit. That makes the woman relive that every 6 months. We also have states like Louisiana that make it illegal for a woman who's had a felony conviction in the last 5 years to even have a free rape kit. So these are the things that are happening. One of the things I noticed in Washington, I told one lawmaker that, and he said, I didn't even know about these rape kits. I don't even know what you're talking about. So women need to be talked about, and we need to be examining all these things, and we can't be kind of a second-class citizen. One of the things lawmakers also said was, women aren't hot. And I know we're always talking about, are women hot? Is this one hot? I'm not talking about visually. I'm talking about politically. The issue of women is not considered hot. So even if you have people in Congress that you think will support women, oftentimes they're not, because we're not making them realize it is hot. It is important that we're examining how they vote on the Paycheck Fairness Act, that we care how they vote on equal pay bills, on passing the Equal Rights Amendment. Because if we pass the Equal Rights Amendment, we can go back into court and we can say, almost all these victims are females. Is that why you've thrown away thousands of rape kits unprocessed? Is that why women have to wait years or decades for any kind of justice for one of the most violent crimes known to man? These are the kinds of questions, if we pass the Equal Rights Amendment in the United States, we could start bringing court cases so that we could start examining these bias that we have in our government, our spending, and across the board.
So what you're really saying is that we need to make this a hot issue.
Yeah.
And it became a hot issue in California. What turned up the temperature in California to get some of this legislation passed?
Well, Senator Hannah Beth Jackson is a great leader. She also worked with Governor Brown to make it illegal to have prisoners sterilized without their real consent, which was happening in California, kind of unbelievably to a lot of women. So anyway, they passed that legislation as well. So they're both great, and I would follow them and support whatever they do because they are partners with women. But part of it is to ask your lawmakers, where are you at? And tell them, I really want to see what you're doing. I do think this is a hot issue. I hope you start considering it a hot issue, talking about it with your friends and having these conversations.
You know, one of the things that struck me in my conversation with you is your commitment to personal bravery. And I know you have a personal story about how you went into acting because of that commitment. And I want to know a little bit more about that. The reason I say this is I've done a lot of study on the sociological development of women and so forth, and there is a reluctance, a risk reluctance, that's tied to being accepted, being safe, or being wrong. In other words, a perfectionistic streak and so forth. And what is the self-conversation that you have when you decide you're going to be brave?
Well, there's a couple of things. We spoke earlier a little bit about some ideas of how I could change the workplace. I mean, first of all, now that this big law is passed in California, companies are having to examine why are they paying women less. And they're going to have to come up with this actual answer. And they're not going to be able to. So they're going to have to pay women more. But we need that for all women across the country. We were talking about when you are in a job position, maybe going to your higher up and saying, hey, when there's an opportunity to advance, I want to be on that list. I'm very interested in doing that. What can I be doing now to work towards that? So there's some level where it's negotiation. There's some level about putting yourself out there. What can they say? No? What can they do? Forget it? But you're planting a seed, and when the time comes, that seed, they might go, yeah, but I think Nancy said she also wanted to be considered for this. So it's good to be in there and to make that inroad, I think. But it's not, negotiation can't equal pay loss.
Right.
And we need such radical changes. They talk about the pay gap isn't going to close for 40 years or up to 118 years. with the way we have things structured today. So we actually have to make radical, unnatural changes that feel kind of, whoa, that's a lot to ask, that's kind of intense. We do need to do that. I think maybe you as women can all start saying to people, you know, it would be great to start anonymously communicating with different departments to say, here's some suggestions. For example, there's some companies that make sure that at least 30% of the meetings have women participating. I mean, women are 30% of the people participating in every meeting. That helps you have that voice coming in. I mean, for me, when I started acting, I was really afraid to act. I didn't know if I wanted to be a midwife or an actor, but I knew more than being either one, I wanted to be a brave person. So I came up with this concept that I was going to fail for a year. That was my real job, was to not be afraid to fail. So I gave myself a year, and every year I'd say, well, I'm going to audition, or I'm going to watch a performance, I'm going to read a play and break it down, or something like that. So I did that for a year, and what I found on that route was I got a job, and I got a movie, and I thought I sucked at it, and I was terrified every day to show up. But I also knew, oh, I'm winning, because this is terrifying. And I suck at this. Oh my God. Wow, but I'm showing up again. Woo, I'm brave. Well, what happened was I stumbled into a lot of success. Through fear, I walked through my fear, I walked through that fire, and I just heard another guy on the radio telling me he'd heard this story about some Russians and how they were like this assassin school. And basically, he had just gotten dumped, and he decided he was going to do this for himself. For a year, he was going to put himself out to get rejected because he was so afraid of rejection after being dumped by this woman he loved. So what he'd do, he'd made up all these cards, like ask a stranger for a piece of gum, ask someone you barely know for a ride, 5 miles away. Well, what he found was more often than not, people gave him oh, I don't have a piece of gum, but walk with me over here. I'd love a piece of gum. Here, I'm going to buy a pack. Here's a piece of gum. Or people would give him a ride. Or more often than not, people would actually not say no to these things that he was so certain people would say no to. So I think we're the first line of defense holding ourselves back. I don't want to blame us because I feel like we get blamed all the time. You request something, you're bitchy, or you're too pushy, or you have to frame it in this certain way, and I don't really believe in any of that. But I do believe that we should, strange coming from me, but I do think that we can, every human being, male and female, we're all afraid. And we all could do more for our own potential than we even realize. And also, these are our brothers and sisters, and we have something to contribute to each other, and we can make that possibility happen.
That's brilliant. My wife always says the world goes to the askers. So ask for what you want. You'd be surprised how often you get it. That's great advice. But I love how you not only said failure is part of the process, it's actually the goal. And sometimes when I talk to people, I say, you never know what the limits of your ability are until you get to the point of failure. Mm-hmm. And it's always much further than they think. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the Equal Rights Amendment, there's a lot of people, I think, who thought that was passed. Or can you just tell us again what the Equal Rights Amendment really is? And do we need to resurrect it?
It's 26 words. And actually, most of the country think it passed. And 98% of the country supports it. When you say, do you think women should have equal rights to men? Yes. They say, yes, we do. Well, what it is it's very simple. I think it's 26 words. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. So we could say, well, why do we have more animal shelters than female abuse, women or abuse shelters for people? Why do we have all these rape kits? Why is it permissible to underpay all these women? Because it's in every field. It's in 98% of all fields. We see it from Lily Ledbetter at a tire factory, to soccer teams, everyone in between, Betty Dukes at a retailer. So We need to examine this. We need strong laws. We need to push our government. And we need to make this the norm. To just, when it's a point of, it's not about men or women, it's just about my coworker, and we all have equal respect and opportunity.
I just wanted to add to your statistics, because we talked about it a little bit before. One of the invisible parts of wage inequality is opportunity inequality. And on average, it takes women twice as long to be promoted if they have equal experience and equal education. And so over a lifetime, that adds up to a huge difference. And it's kind of invisible because being overlooked isn't something you can really point to. But it's also, Columbia School of Public Health just found out, it is the major contributor to depression and job stress among women, is this opportunity gap. So what you're saying, I just completely endorse, and it kind of outrageous, it's outrageous, the whole thing.
Well, and all of these things are kind of connected. So you're talking about lower opportunity, then lower wages over a lifetime, and then I'm talking about more poverty in your elder years. We know Latina women are making 55 cents on the dollar, black women 63 cents on the dollar, and white women 78 cents on the dollar. And it's causing Latina women, it takes them years longer to pay back their college loan. So then it takes them years longer to save up for a house down payment. Then it takes them years longer. I mean, it just keeps kind of getting worse and worse. At Facebook, they did a little study where they said they looked at people with a 1% subconscious bias. It was sort of like a pyramid upside down. It started very small, this bias, but as it went into the workplace, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger throughout your life. And that's kind of really how it goes. And we can push for a radical change. The great thing and the bad thing about this time we're living in is it's a radical time. Radical things are going to happen. So we get to make the radical things we want to happen if we all work together. I have some power because I can get into those rooms and have those conversations, but I only have so much power. But every person in this room and every Facebook friend you have and every way you can social media, heat up this conversation and communicate with your lawmakers, we all have the power here. And it's like if you bring all these points of light, you're going to have this brilliant sun, and they're going to have to deal with it.
You know, it sounds like you're starting a movement. I mean, the movement's already there, but the movement needs to be organized. The movement needs to have a face. The movement needs to have leadership. And if, just for a few minutes, you were that person, what specifically would you ask us to do?
I would ask you all to do 3 things. I would say, contact your lawmaker and say, I want you to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act. I want to know what are you doing for women for equal pay, rape kits, domestic violence. These issues matter to me as a voter. And I would say I want you to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. And then I'll just keep adding. Then, because remember we asked for more and we're not scared. People won't do it because it's okay to ask for more. I would also really encourage you to bring your friends to go see this movie, Equal Means Equal, when it comes out. Have a house party, make some chili, hang out, have margaritas, get mad, make little Twitter videos. We're pissed.
That's great. Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to you and see if you have any questions. This is your chance, so be brave.
Raise their hand. Right here. Oh, thank you. I was wondering. Sorry. How do we begin these conversations? They're very important, and that's like a hot topic. How do we just introduce this idea to our other coworkers who might not be on the same page yet?
That's a really good question. I guess I would read the Paycheck Fairness Act, look up some articles so you could see how that changed the law. And I would just start saying, wow, that's pretty crazy. They passed that. That's amazing. God, I really wish all women had that. in America. It sucks that, we have 66 women and kids living in poverty. 33 million of them wouldn't be if their mom was just paid their full dollar. We have 1 in 5 hungry kids in America. Doesn't that suck? Yeah, we should do something about that. You know what? There's this Paycheck Fairness Act. I think that's really important. Hey, Bob, I'm not sure when you guys are going to promote people, but don't forget me. I'm in there, man. What do I need to do to show you I got what it takes?
You're leading this program, I'm telling you. You're sunk now. Who else?
Oh, this lady too next. Sorry. After you. Okay. Okay, sorry.
I just had a quick question too about, where does HR stand in all of this? Like, do they have any voice? And I mean, they're seeing the offers go through, they see the offer letters and the conversation. So where's their voice?
Well, I think that practically in California, they're all looking at all of this. Some of the things that some companies have done, and again, if you want to say, let's do some anonymous suggestions. Some companies are saying, we're going to hire managers, and we're going to pay between $25,000 and $35,000. So they're kind of giving you a bracket of what their pay area is. Another thing for women to really ask in the meeting and think about, and what's going to be critical, and they're going to have to tweak this law and look at it and see how it's working. It's going to be growing and changing slightly, but is also the packages. How much paid vacation time does someone have? How much money in retirement and 401ks do they get? All those kind of things too. But in California, they're going to have to start looking at that stuff. But I've heard in this movie my friend made, there's this anonymous recording with this woman who's pregnant, and she's saying, so I'm going to have my baby next week, and I have to take a couple days off to have my baby. And the lady says, well, if you don't come to work, we consider that you're quitting. So you don't get benefits. So it's better for you, for your record, for you to resign. She said, but I'm having my baby. I'm giving birth to this baby, a human baby. I can't come to work. She said, yes, but to us, you're just not showing up to work. So part of it also is saying that you care with your lawmakers about workplace protections for pregnancy. Not just for mothers, but for fathers too. We know for mental health and emotional health of a baby, they should bond with somebody for a little time, a decent amount of time that the dad or the mom or both can be at home and be with the baby and get through that hurdle. So we have very weak protections. I mean, we're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have some serious protection for this. So that's another area to look at. And it's oftentimes impacting women who have to leave work, literally.
If I may comment too, I think we have to change the language to a talent issue than from a gender issue. In other words, if you're going to mistreat half your talent, who brings something very different than the other half the talent does, you're not going to be competitive. And we can't have companies run by Neanderthals. We've got to move beyond that. And it's not too much to ask for the golden rule to be the guideline for HR. And anyway, I mean, there's a point where we have to be outraged at situations like this. And the experience, I came across something called positive nagging.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Or the nagging part at least, I know.
This positive nagging, believe me. I can tell you this room of women could change the future. Just the women in this room, just the women in this room. It's a matter of being relentless, because the attention span of most men is very short, you may have noticed. So that's why nagging is a strategy that has been created by women for 10,000 years.
That's crazy, because I actually said we got to bring the nag back. Nagging is acceptable. I says so. But one thing that you made me think about is in tech, I remember hearing this kind of spooky story that it's like, oh yeah, you know, we can recognize your eye. If you give us this information, you know, people my age don't want to give out their social security information, but these millennials are like, sure, here you go. Pop, 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 you know. They just give out all this. So they said, we can do so much stuff, but it will creep people out. It will really freak people out. So we have to push it to the edge of freaking people out. Then they normalize to it. Then we push it to the next level. So here we are in California, breaking ground for fair pay laws. We have to make that the norm nationwide, okay? So very soon, as soon as we pass all that, it will become normalized. Then we could push it to the next level. That will become normalized. If we do that, girls entering the workforce today are not going to spend their whole earnings life earning less money because of their gender and their race, and live their elder years more likely in poverty. We don't need that, and it's not acceptable. So we have to push, and so everything gets normalized, and then push again, and that will get normalized. But no one's going to do it for you. We have to do that.
Are you running for the Senate now?
No. Hell no. No. No.
Who else?
Oh, I had a comment about you saying we should write to the congressman. Well, the issue is that, like, a lot of women vote for the Republican candidates, like the majority white women, but not black women, that are against these equal right amendments. So why should you write to the congressman or the person that you voted for that you already know is against ERA or against Liddy Ledbetter? I think we have to talk to our friends and say, you know, I think it has to begin with us.
I think that's true. I think you're right. But it does help, because I'm telling you, I'm going to DC and I'm having these meetings and I'm really trying to say, hey, you got to reach across the aisle. And I'm having some success getting in the room with Republicans and having these conversations about, let's put these differences aside. We're talking about Americans and we're talking about poverty. And maybe you want to spend less money on poverty. Well, maybe make employers pay their employees. How about that? Then you won't have such big government, because businesses are actually paying for people themselves a living wage. That would be crazy. But I think it does help. They do hear it. They do see it. So I think it's both things. I think it is pressuring the government. I think it does help groups get in the room, like the rape advocate groups, get in the room when they start hearing that. And also, I think talking to your friends is critical.
I just want to comment that I think this can become transpolitical, meaning that if a Republican has daughters and the daughters are smart enough to understand what's going on, they will be converted. This is transpolitical if it's done right.
Well, and there are some Republicans that are on the ERA bills. It's about getting more to come to the table. And I hate to tell you, the person who told me women were not hot was not a Republican. So even though you think maybe that some Democrats are on board, are they really pushing it? How high on the agenda is it for them? Are they presenting it? Are they showing up to the meetings? Are they pushing for it? Because it's easy to say you're for something, but if you're actually not actively pushing it, it's just talk.
I think we have time for two more questions.
I have a question as a parent. What list of actions would you give parents for their children? I have a boy and a girl, and you gave a good list for adults, but what would you tell us to do with our children to make sure the future is different?
Well, one thing is I would explain to both of them that women don't have equal rights in America. And if they say, really? Because it seems like we do. You know, recent Supreme Court Justice Scalia, who passed away, he said, Certainly the Constitution doesn't require discrimination on the basis of sex. The question, does it prohibit it? No, it does not. And Ruth Ginsburg said passing the Equal Rights Amendment would be the most important amendment to pass in her lifetime. So we have two Supreme Court justices telling us that it's critical that women have equal rights in America. So I would teach my son and my daughter that, and then I would just start pointing out the ways that it's not fair and why and how we need men to have our backs, because when men participate in the process, change happens 10 times faster.
That's great. Our last question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. My question is, what are the most important takeaways that you've seen from past fights for civil rights in the U.S. that we can apply to fighting for equal pay?
That's a great, great question. I don't even know that I've sat down and thought about that. I mean, we have talked about it. I've talked about it with women. They're like, okay, well, equal rights, like the LGBT community kind of came together and said it's only about love. That's what it's about. It's about love. I think women are constantly dealing with a blowback like, oh, it's about women and women's issues and angry women and women want this and they don't think they have it and they have it. And then you get thrown all these fake statistics that really don't hold water, and it's just this back and forth. I'm not sure how to switch it over. I think part of it is appealing to our brothers and sisters who are activists and saying, please have women's back on this. Are you aware that thousands of rape kits, there's states they don't even know where the rape kits are or how many there are that are not processed. We need our activists in every community to have our back. It's really important. I don't know how to make that happen. I think part of it is the conversation of what's really going on with women. When we talk about like prison reform, we need to talk about the fact that 28% of all the women that go to prison have been sexually assaulted in the last week. We have to talk about the fact that pimps go in and clear out whole foster care homes, and then those women, those girls, go to jail for prostitution. And we have to talk about the fact that the United States have the largest number of incarcerated women in the world, women and girls. And we have to talk about the fact that the fastest growing group of incarcerated people in the United States are women of color. And it has been for decades. These are conversations that aren't had. Even when we're talking about prison reform, we're not talking about women in prison. But most of those women are mothers, and those are whole families that are impacted. 9 out of 10 women who are in prison for killing a man are in prison for killing their abuser. And oftentimes, they'll be with a man who's knocked their teeth out, broken bones, they've had restraining orders, and they'll still get 24 years when they defend their own life. So these are conversations. We also have to insert women into things. Our trans sisters, they're not talked about either with prison reform. We have women like Ashley Diamond who were raped, reported a rape in prison, and was put in the same cell with her rapist, where she was raped again. So these are, and other women are raped by guards. These are conversations that we have to have. We have to insert women back into every conversation. We have to talk about 6/10 of all the lowest wage earners in America are women. 75% of the African American community today is being raised by single moms. Those women are making on average 68 cents on the dollar. So what is that going to do to that whole next generation of economically suppressed kids? Talking about women and women's economic power and women's rights in every area is critical for everything we all want.
I marched with the LGBT, and what we yelled in Washington, 1 million of us, was what do we want? Equality. When do we want it? Now. And I think that's the message that we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this movie, Equal Means Equal, it is about equality. Thank you. Thank you for doing that, too.
You know, it's time to make equal rights for women something that nobody can be against. And it's sessions like this and leaders like you, because you are a leader in a way I did not understand before tonight. This is where it all begins. And we're in a new time. There's a new era. The millennials have a different feeling about equality than their parents or my generation has. And it's time to wash away this stain. And it all happens in meetings like this. So watch that movie and keep in touch with what Patricia's doing.
I just want to say one last thing, sorry. You know, on a plane, when they say, if the oxygen falls, put it on your mask before your baby. I was like, no way in hell. I'm going to put that mask on my baby so fast, they won't know what they're talking about. And then someone said to me, because I was a mom at 20, right? So of course, I figured that. And somebody said to me, but then you'll pass out and die. And the baby will have the oxygen on, but no one will be able to help the baby. And then I said, oh my God, that's right. And that's the shift we have to make. As soon as we put this damn oxygen mask on ourselves, and each of our sisters and daughters and grandmothers and everybody, we're all going to survive this plane crash. Okay?
Well, I don't think we can top that metaphor. So I truly want to thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, and thanks for all your work. And thank you guys, thank you for having me.